The first sign was so small I almost missed it. It was a text tone. Her phone buzzed at 2:17 a.m. Just once. A tiny vibration that probably would have gone unnoticed if I hadn't been in the kitchen. Drinking water in the dark, unable to sleep. I looked down the hallway and saw the glow from her nightstand. She was sleeping soundly in our bed, curled up like nothing in the world was bothering her. But that screen was still lit and something told me, look. I walked into the bedroom, silent, bare feet on cold wood. Her phone was face up, and I saw a preview of the message before it disappeared. Still thinking about last night. Can't wait for the next round. It was from someone named Nate. I stared at it for a long time. My heart wasn't racing. It wasn't shock. It was something else. The kind of stillness you feel just before a thunderstorm hits. I didn't wake her up. I didn't touch the phone. I just walked out of the room, sat in the living room, and stared into the dark. That moment broke something in me, but I didn't react. Not yet. I needed to be sure. I needed to know that I wasn't going to accuse my wife of betrayal without hard, undeniable evidence. Madison was always a sweet talker, always had a way of twisting things, laughing things off, turning guilt into fog. But I'm not stupid. I'm not naive. And I wasn't about to be played. The next few days were a quiet war. I started watching, listening. She didn't notice. Madison had gotten sloppy, or maybe she thought I was too dull, too trusting, too wrapped up in my work to ever suspect a thing. Her phone was always in her hand now, face down on tables. She'd laugh at texts, swipe them away when I glanced. And those networking events started happening every Thursday without fail. One night, she came home late again, this time smelling like a mixture of cologne and cheap hotel soap. Her hair was damp, not from rain, not from a gym shower. I knew that smell. She kissed me on the cheek, didn't even look me in the eye. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I cloned her phone. It wasn't hard. I work in cybersecurity. Madison has no idea how easy it is to mirror someone's messages with the right software and 2 minutes alone with their device. I synced it to a burner phone and waited. The first message I saw made my stomach twist. Nate, you left your necklace in the sheets. I kept it. That was the confirmation. Not a suspicion. Not a maybe. Just fact. They were together. In bed. In a place that wasn't our home. And she left something there. Casual. Familiar. Like it wasn't the first time. Like she'd done this before. And then something snapped. I read more. I read everything. Over 100 threads. Pictures. Jokes. Inside phrases. She sent him selfies in outfits she never wore for me. Called him pet names. He called her his firecracker. Talked about her body like it belonged to him. And she loved it. She fed it. There was a picture of her biting her lip, taken in our kitchen with my coffee mug behind her. My wife. In my house. Sending flirty pictures to another man while I was at work trying to pay the mortgage. I didn't sleep that night. I just stared at the screen, watching her words, her secrets spill out one after another. She wasn't just cheating. She was thriving in it. She loved the thrill, the double life, the danger. And all the while, I was the loyal idiot mowing the lawn and fixing leaky pipes, thinking we were just in a rut. The next morning, I made coffee, set it on the table, and watched her come down the stairs in her robe, yawning like a princess. "Morning," she said, leaning over to kiss my head. Pulled away. She blinked. "What?" I looked up at her and said, without blinking, "Let him know you'll be free next week. I'll handle the divorce papers." She froze, hand still in her robe pocket. Her mouth opened slightly, eyes wide like she couldn't compute what I just said. "Wait, what?" Her voice trembled. Not from shame. Not from remorse. From fear. She knew. She knew I knew. And that's when everything really began to unravel. There was a full 5 seconds of silence after I said it. 5 long, slow seconds where the air felt heavier than stone. Madison didn't blink. Her hand tightened in her robe pocket, her breathing shallow. I saw her pupils dart. She was calculating, not regretting. Not even close. Just scanning for an angle. like she was watching a board game tip over and trying to remember where all her pieces had landed. "Wait, what are you talking about?" she finally asked, voice high, light. "Fake. So fake." That tone she used when she was trying to joke her way out of a speeding ticket or lie to the barista about her name just to hear it yelled differently. She was still hoping this was bluff. Hoping I'd fold. I didn't blink. "I've read every single message," I said, steady. "Every picture. Every plan. Every lie. Nate's a very expressive guy." Her mouth opened again. Closed. Then, like flipping a switch, her whole face changed. Soft lips pulled into a hard line. Eyes narrowing. The warmth in her voice gone. "You had no right to go through my phone." There it was. Not an apology. Not a question. Not even panic. Just pure, boiling defense, like I was the villain. Like my betrayal somehow outweighed hers. I didn't respond. Just sipped my coffee. She stepped closer, robe swinging slightly at her knees. "You think snooping gives you some moral high ground? That's disgusting, Tyler." I stood up. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't throw anything. But I stepped forward until we were only a few inches apart and said, "You sent him a picture in our bed, wearing my shirt. That's not disgusting." She looked away just for a second. That was enough. And then she smiled. Not out of joy. It was the kind of smile you give a stranger right before you punch them in the gut. "You haven't touched me in months," she said flatly. "You've been checked out. Distant. Cold. Maybe if you were a husband instead of a roommate, this wouldn't have happened." That hit harder than anything Nate could have texted. That wasn't just deflection. It was a scalpel aimed at the one part of me that still blamed myself for the distance between us. But the truth? I had pulled away. Not out of boredom. Not out of neglect. I'd pulled away because she already felt gone. I just didn't want to admit it until now. "So it's my fault," I said, voice like stone. She shrugged. "You made it easy." And in that moment, not when I read the messages, not when I saw the photos, but right then, I felt the love die. Like watching a fire smother itself into cold ash. I looked at her and saw a stranger. A manipulative, cruel, selfish stranger wearing my wife's skin. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I picked up my phone, scrolled to the file labeled "Divorce Initial Docs," and slid it across the table to her. "You can stay at your sister's tonight," I said. "You've got until the end of the week to get your things." Madison stared at the file like it was venom. "You're serious?" "I was never more serious than I am right now." Her face twitched, just for a moment. A flicker of loss, confusion, maybe even realization. But then it vanished, replaced by that mask she wore so easily when she wanted to stay in control. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "You're throwing away almost a decade." I looked her dead in the eye. "No, you did." And then I walked past her. Behind me, I heard her whisper something. Maybe my name, maybe a curse. I didn't care. I went to the bedroom, shut the door, and for the first time in months, slept like a man who knew exactly what he needed to do next. She was gone by morning. No note, no message, just silence. The guest room door was wide open. A drawer half emptied. A few hangers missing from the closet. She took her essentials, her favorite perfume, that gold necklace she used to say was sentimental. Though now I wonder who gave it to her. The sheets were still warm. The air still smelled faintly of her shampoo. But the house, our house, finally felt like mine again. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my phone. I had it all, every screenshot, every time-stamped betrayal. I'd already forwarded everything to my personal lawyer the night before, along with the preliminary divorce filing. I wanted to be fast. I wanted her to feel that speed. No waiting. No tears. No second chances. Just consequences. Around noon, I got a text from her sister, Kayla. "Kayla, what's going on?" Madison showed up crying but won't say anything. "Did you guys fight?" I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Madison would spin her story. She always did. She'd twist the facts, position herself as the victim. Probably tell Kayla that I'd turned cold, stopped caring, or invaded her privacy. What she wouldn't say is that she was balancing two lives like a circus act. One foot in our home, one in a stranger's bed. Around 3 p.m., the phone rang. Madison. I stared at her name on the screen. Didn't move. Let it go to voicemail. Then again. 10 minutes later. Again. Again. On the fourth call, I answered. Nothing. Just breathing on the line. Then her voice. Small. Tight. Rehearsed. Can we talk? No. A pause. Please. Just let me explain. You already did. In 100 texts. To Nate. That silence again. Heavy, suffocating. Then she snapped. You think you're some saint? Like you didn't make mistakes. I almost laughed. I didn't crawl into bed with someone else and lie about it for months. Her tone changed. The venom came back, fast and sharp. You're being dramatic. Dramatic. I snapped, standing up from the table. You cheated, Madison. You lied. You played house with me while you were playing dress up for him. You made me feel like I was the problem while you were sneaking around behind my back. That's not drama. That's just the truth. She started crying. Loud, choked sobs that I used to care about. But now, they sounded hollow, mechanical, like she was crying for herself. Not for us. I made a mistake, she whimpered. I didn't flinch. No. You made a series of choices. Over and over. That's not a mistake. That's who you are. She said nothing after that. So I hung up. That night, I took our wedding photo off the wall. The one where she's laughing, eyes closed, leaning into me like I was her whole world. I stared at it for a long time. Not with sadness. Not with hate. Just disappointment. A quiet, dull ache for what could have been. If she had just chosen me instead of chasing whatever thrill she thought Nate gave her. I didn't smash it. Didn't burn it. I just took it down, wrapped it in a towel, and put it in the back of the hall closet. By midnight, I was alone. No buzzing phone. No lies. Just the sound of rain tapping the windows and the steady hum of the fridge. For the first time in a long time, I felt something close to peace. Temporary. Fragile. But real. 3 days later, I got a knock at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone. Most of our mutual friends had gone radio silent, probably after Madison started quietly spreading her version of the story. I'd already seen 2 vague Instagram stories from her inner circle, the kind with quotes like, "People don't change, they just get tired of being unappreciated." The usual passive-aggressive fluff. So when the knock came, I half expected a neighbor or maybe a delivery at the wrong address. It was Nate. At first, I didn't recognize him. He looked ordinary. Gray hoodie, smug face, sunglasses still on despite the overcast sky. But then I saw the tattoo on his forearm, the same one in the mirror selfie Madison had saved to her phone. He smiled. You, Tyler. I stared at him. Who's asking? I'm Nate. I figured we should talk. Man to man. I didn't move. Didn't speak. He just stood there like he was expecting an invitation inside. He didn't get one. He shrugged. Look, man. I didn't know she was married. She told me you two were separated. I laughed. Actually laughed. That's your defense? He held his hands up. I'm not trying to start anything. I just thought you deserved to hear it from me. You slept with my wife, I said flatly. What exactly do I need to hear from you? There was a long pause. Then, unbelievably, he chuckled. You don't have to be bitter, dude. You're getting out. You should be thanking me. That's when I stepped forward. Just one step. Close enough for him to understand I wasn't bluffing. I kept my voice calm, measured, not loud, which made it hit harder. If you ever come to my house again, you'll regret it. He smirked like he thought I was joking. But the longer I stared, the faster his grin faded. He backed off the porch, hands in his pockets, muttering something I didn't catch. Probably a final dig. Didn't matter. I watched him walk down the driveway, climb into some dented black sports car, and drive off like he'd just won something. He hadn't. Madison had been texting me constantly since our last call, alternating between rage, guilt, denial, and flattery. The usual cycle of manipulation. Everything from, I miss you, to you're overreacting, to, we can still fix this. She even sent me a picture of the cat we adopted last year. sitting on her lap, captioned, "She misses you too." I didn't reply. Instead, I took my time building the documentation. Every message, every image, a timeline of events. My lawyer was efficient, cold, and thorough, just like I needed. A week later, I served her. She wasn't expecting it. She texted me that night, just one line. "So this is really happening?" I didn't answer. I went out that night, alone. Walked into a bar I hadn't stepped foot in for years. Ordered a drink. Just sat there, letting the noise wash over me. For once, I didn't feel like I was suffocating. And then something strange happened. I laughed. Not bitter, not forced, just laughed. Some guy at the next table had told a terrible joke and spilled half his drink on himself. It was clumsy, stupid, human, and real. And for that moment, I remembered what it was like to be outside of the web Madison had spun around my life. I wasn't just a husband anymore. I was a man starting over. A man waking up from a very long, very cruel dream. 2 weeks after I served her, she finally showed up in person. It was a Thursday, early evening. I'd just gotten home from work and was standing in the kitchen, still in my button-up, sleeves rolled up, chopping vegetables like the silence of the house didn't gnaw at me some nights. The doorbell rang once. Short, sharp. I didn't even have to check the peephole. I knew. I opened the door slowly. There she was, Madison, wearing her fake sincere face. Hair done like she'd just come from a meeting. No makeup, as if to say, "Look, I'm vulnerable now." Holding a manila envelope like it held something important. She smelled like nostalgia and manipulation. That soft perfume I used to associate with date nights, not double lives. "I just want to talk," she said. I leaned on the doorframe. "We've talked. You lied. Then you cried. Then you blamed me. What's left?" Her eyes flicked to the ground. "Can I come in?" "No." She blinked like she hadn't expected that. Like she still believed her presence alone gave her power. Didn't. She held out the envelope. "It's everything. Passwords, documents, bank info. I figured you'd want to separate things cleanly." I took it but said nothing. She lingered. I didn't move aside. Madison sighed. "Do you hate me?" "I don't know if I care enough to." That hit her. I saw it. Not because it was cruel, but because it was true. Hate takes energy. She didn't deserve mine. She hesitated. "You really think I'm just some villain?" I tilted my head. "You want me to say you're complicated? That you had your reasons? Sure. But none of them undo what you did. And none of them make you good." She scoffed, suddenly angry again. Like being caught wasn't enough. She still wanted to win something. "You think you're perfect? You think you were easy to live with?" "No," I said, voice level. "But I never stopped being married." And that shut her up. She didn't cry this time. Didn't plead. She just stared at me like she was searching for something in my face. Maybe the man she thought would always forgive her. Maybe the fool she used to control. But all she saw was a locked door. Literally and figuratively. "I loved you," she said finally. "Then you should have acted like it." And I closed the door. I stood there for a long time after that. Envelope still in hand. Her scent still in the air. My reflection staring back at me in the glass. Not broken, not bitter. Just done. Inside the envelope was everything she said. Passwords, joint account access, her signature on the property release forms. It was all too easy. I wondered if this was guilt or just her way of wrapping things up before skipping ahead to the next chapter of her life. The one where she tells her friends she left a toxic marriage and paints herself as the survivor. Let her. The truth lives here with me. I moved her last remaining things into 2 boxes. One for trash, one for drop-off. And then I changed the locks. There was no grand meltdown. No dramatic goodbye. No 3 a.m. calls begging for reconciliation. Just slow, suffocating quiet. The death of something that had already been rotting for months. And me no longer mourning it. Just breathing again. The silence after Madison left wasn't peaceful. Not at first. At first, it was a different kind of noise. The kind that creeps into your bones late at night, whispering reminders of everything you lost, everything you missed, everything you should have seen. I'd wake up at 3:14 a.m., like clockwork, reaching for a weight beside me that wasn't there anymore. Then I'd stare at the ceiling, trying to figure out if I was angry or just hollow. I kept the house clean, obsessively, wiped the counters twice, vacuumed rooms I barely walked into, organized the garage, polished the door handles. Not because I cared, but because chaos was Madison's playground, and order was the only thing I could cling to. And still, she found ways to try and crawl back in. A voicemail on a Tuesday night. Her voice quiet, calculated, pretending to be lost. I keep remembering your lasagna. I miss how you made it with the extra basil just for me. Dumb, right? I deleted it. 2 days later, she emailed me a picture of a ceramic mug we'd picked up from a trip to Colorado. The one she swore was hideous in the cutest way. She wrote, "Found this in one of my boxes. Thought it should be with you." She left it at the edge of my driveway. I tossed it in the trash without even looking at it again. And then came the worst of it, the message from her mother. Madison had dragged her parents into it. Claimed I gave up on the marriage. That I changed after the second year. That she tried everything. Her mother sent me a long, emotionally manipulative email asking for a civil conversation and hinting that maybe this wasn't entirely Madison's fault. I didn't respond, because what none of them knew, what Madison refused to tell them, was how many times I had tried to hold this thing together. How many dinners I'd cooked when she came home late and distracted. How many nights I'd reached out only to be turned away. How many hours I'd spent wondering what I did wrong. When all the while, she was building a second life under the same roof. But people like her, they don't tell that version of the story. They tell the one where they're misunderstood, neglected, brokenhearted. And they surround themselves with people who are too naive or too comfortable to ask for receipts. So I stopped explaining myself. I focused on the pieces of me I'd left untouched for years. I went back to the gym, ate better, cleaned up my office, restarted the side project I had shelved for almost a year, reconnected with 2 old friends I'd lost during the Madison isolation era, as they called it, the time when she subtly pushed them out because they weren't the type she could impress. And slowly, I started remembering who I was before all of this. Before the gaslighting. Before the walking on eggshells. Before the woman I married turned into someone I wouldn't trust with a paper cut. One night, I found myself sitting on the couch, no TV on, no phone in my hand, just existing. No tension in my shoulders. No dread in my gut. No wondering if her smile meant something or if her silence meant everything. Just me, breathing, alone. And for the first time in years, I wasn't lonely. I was free. I didn't expect to run into her again. Not in public. Not with him. But the universe has a cruel sense of timing, and it delivered that moment with surgical precision, slicing open the part of me I thought had finished bleeding. It was a Saturday afternoon. I'd gone to pick up coffee and groceries. Normal routine stuff. The weather was decent. The streets were busy. And I had just stepped out of the bakery when I saw them. Madison and Nate, walking hand in hand like they hadn't blown up 2 lives just a month ago. She wore the scarf I bought her 2 winters back, the one she claimed wasn't her color, and stuffed in a drawer. He had that same smug smirk he wore the day he showed up at my door. They were laughing at something, probably a joke she used to tell me, probably the same lines she recycled, over and over like her lies. They hadn't seen me yet. I had about 3 seconds to turn and disappear before she looked up and our eyes locked. She froze, mid-step, like I was a ghost that had materialized in the daylight. Nate looked at her, confused, then turned and saw me. I didn't flinch, didn't sneer, didn't blink. I just stared. Madison, always the performer, tried to play it cool. She dropped his hand, adjusted her scarf, tilted her head slightly. The body language of someone still trying to maintain leverage. "Tyler," she said, like we were bumping into each other at a reunion. Not standing in the wreckage of a marriage she torched. "Madison." Nate gave a half nod. No words. He looked uncomfortable, which was good. She shifted her weight from one leg to the other. "Didn't know you still came here. I never stopped." That landed. Her eyes narrowed slightly. There was a long, thick silence. People passed by, not realizing the emotional collision unfolding on the sidewalk. And then, as if she couldn't help herself, she said it soft, smooth, laced with something bitter. "You look good." I didn't smile. "Divorce will do that." Nate coughed, like he wanted to be anywhere else. Madison gave him a quick glance, but he didn't move. Just stood there, arms limp, like he wasn't used to being ignored. "You really just cut me off," she said quietly. "Like I was nothing." "You made yourself nothing," I replied. "I just accepted it." I saw it then, the tiniest twitch in her jaw, like she wanted to fight, or cry, or say something clever. But she didn't, because she knew. She had lost. And worse, she hadn't been missed. I nodded once, stepped past them, and kept walking. Didn't turn around. Didn't need to. I heard Nate say something like, "What the hell was that?" But her answer was drowned out by traffic. Back in the car, my hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. There was no replay, no regret, just clarity. Closure doesn't always come in soft words or letters or apologies. Sometimes it walks past you wearing your old scarf, holding the wrong man's hand. And all you feel is relief that it's not your problem anymore. It was around this time that I started to realize something most people never tell you about endings. They're not marked by explosions. They don't come with theme music, or a final monologue, or a last dramatic kiss in the rain. Sometimes they come quietly, with blocked numbers, changed locks, and the absence of someone's toothbrush in your bathroom. It was 3 weeks post-run-in when I received a letter. Not an email, not a text. A physical letter, cream envelope, Madison's handwriting on the front, no return address. She'd always said handwritten words were more real. I opened it. Inside, 3 pages. No apology. No real accountability. Just poetic nonsense dressed as closure. She talked about how confused she had been. How she never meant to fall for someone else. How she had felt invisible for a long time, and Nate made her feel seen. She even wrote, "I wish things could have ended differently." Like she hadn't been the one driving the car into the wall while I was busy fixing the engine. Then came the line that really stood out. "You were always too steady." I thought that was boring. But now I realize it was rare. There it was. The compliment soaked in regret. The backhanded acknowledgement that she threw away something solid for a flicker of chaos. She ended the letter with a suggestion. That maybe one day when things had cooled we could meet. Talk like adults. Not to rekindle, but to reconnect. "I'd like to know who you become after this." I didn't respond. Not out of spite. But because I already knew who I was becoming. And it had nothing to do with her. Every day, I found more pieces of myself that had been buried under compromise. I was sharper now. Cleaner. I didn't hesitate like I used to. I trusted my instincts. I spoke more directly. I no longer made excuses for people who drained me. I deleted the email accounts we once shared. Transferred the last of the car title to my name. Changed the emergency contact on my work records. Cut the last ties clean. And then I started something new. Not a relationship. Not yet. But I signed up for a course I'd been putting off, product design. Something I used to love before the marriage, before I became the guy who always sacrificed hobbies to be the stable one. I reconnected with my brother. Flew out to see him and his kids. First trip I'd taken in years without someone else dictating the itinerary. And you know what surprised me? How light everything felt. Not perfect. Not easy. But light. I started sleeping better. Started noticing things. Like how quiet my thoughts had become. How meals tasted better when you weren't swallowing resentment with every bite. How you could walk into your own home and feel peace instead of suspicion. Madison used to say I was too still. That I didn't chase enough. But stillness isn't the absence of motion. It's the presence of control. I wasn't chasing anymore. I was choosing. And every day, I chose distance from the woman who used my loyalty as a doormat. It was mid-September when the divorce finalized. No drama, no courtroom theatrics, just signatures, notarized forms, and one final, quiet transaction between 2 people who used to share everything. I didn't tell anyone that day. I didn't post about it. didn't text friends. Just sat on my back porch with a glass of water and watched the sun go down like it was any other evening. But it wasn't, because in that silence, something shifted. Not suddenly, but like a curtain being drawn back after a long winter. A kind of warmth I hadn't felt in years began to seep into me. The weight was gone. Not just the weight of her betrayal, but the weight of her moods, her disapproval, her emotional games. The waiting, the wondering, the bargaining. I had carried it all like a man dragging a broken axle down a dirt road, calling it commitment when it was just quiet suffering. And now, freedom. In the weeks that followed, I did things without thinking twice. I bought a new couch. Not because we needed one, but because I wanted one. Sleek, simple, dark gray. Madison always hated dark furniture. Said it was too masculine. Funny how I'd let her taste define my space for so long. I also got rid of every pillow she'd ever bought. Those decorative ones with sequins and tassels, the kind you can't even lean on without feeling like you're being stabbed. I tossed them into a donation box without hesitation. Felt like exorcising ghosts. One night I went through old photos not to cry, but to clear them out. Digital albums, vacation shots, birthday dinners, our wedding. I looked at each one and tried to find the moment the lie began. Tried to trace her smile, her touch, her eyes. See if there was something I missed. But there wasn't, because the truth is, it didn't happen in one moment. It happened in thousands of small choices, hers and mine. Hers to lie, to hide, to deceive. Mine to ignore, to excuse, to hope. Kept one photo, just one. Not of us, just me. Standing alone on a cliff in Oregon. Back when we took a road trip in year 2. She had taken the photo. I barely remembered the moment, but I looked peaceful, strong, unaware of what was coming. That was the man I wanted to become again. Not the version she tried to shape. Not the man who tiptoed around her moods. Not the one who gave more than he got. Just me. Whole. That weekend, I started writing again, nothing major, just short reflections. Journals. Notes to myself. A way to process, to file away the chaos. I didn't want to forget what happened. I didn't want to bury it. I wanted to remember every part of it, clearly, cleanly, so I could recognize the signs if they ever showed up again. Because I knew now, betrayal doesn't arrive with warning bells. It creeps in through locked phones, missed calls, and phrases like, "You're imagining things." It wears the face you love and uses your trust as a stepping stone. But when you walk through that fire and come out the other side, you see it all differently. Not with bitterness, but with clarity. And clarity, that's where healing begins. It's been 4 months since the ink dried on the divorce papers. And not once have I looked back wishing it went differently. I think that's the part people don't talk about. How peace doesn't always arrive with a celebration. Sometimes it walks in quietly, settles next to you on the couch, and simply stays. No tension. No games, just stillness. That's how it's been. Every morning now, I wake up without a pit in my stomach. The silence in my home isn't threatening. It's mine. Clean, honest, simple. There's no longer a half-closed bathroom door with whispers behind it. No more texts flipped upside down on a dimmed phone. No more pretending not to notice when she laughs at someone else's joke a little too long, or leaves the room to take a call she pretends isn't important. There's just me, and I've learned to like him again. The final confirmation of everything came not in the form of drama, but in something small, an email. Madison reached out one last time. A 2-line message. Simple. Empty. Hope you're doing well. I'm sorry for everything. I didn't reply, not because I hadn't healed, but because I had. Forgiveness isn't always something you announce. Sometimes it's just the moment you stop needing answers. The moment you stop rereading old messages or replaying arguments in your head. The moment you stop needing the other person to understand what they did, because you finally understand what you deserve. I deserve loyalty. I deserve honesty. I deserve a partner who doesn't weaponize silence or play chess with affection. And she deserves exactly what she chose. A man who knew she was married and touched her anyway. A life built on thrill and pretense. A hollow kind of attention that burns bright but doesn't last. Maybe she'll keep pretending. Maybe she'll keep lying. That's not my burden anymore. I've rebuilt from the wreckage. Piece by piece. New furniture. New routines. New boundaries. And maybe soon new love. But only when I'm ready. And only if it comes with truth, not performance. If I could give one piece of advice to anyone reading this, it's this: don't let someone stay in your life just because you once pictured a future with them. A future built on fiction isn't worth clinging to. Pay attention to how people treat you when they think you're not paying attention. That's who they are. I thought I had a marriage. What I had was a performance. But now I have something better. Myself. Whole. A little bruised. But no longer blind. And that's everything.